Discover connection, awaken sacredness, become empowered. Join us for our show on Blog Talk Radio. Discover your spiritual gifts live.
Welcome, everybody, to Discover Your Spiritual Gifts Live. This is Jason.
And Vialet.
And our partner Dave is out of the office today, so it'll be Violet and I running the show. And we are here with Jude Starks today. She's going to share her story and all of the things she teaches, which is quite the list, to be honest. Jude is an evidential psychic medium. She's also a trance medium, a hypnotherapist, master practitioner, and a trainer of NLP, MER and hypnosis, Reiki master teacher, an accomplished psychic development and mediumship trainer, a UK associated spiritualist, and trained with Arthur Findlay College tutors, and she's a pharmacist.
Crazy, isn't it?
It is quite the list. That took me 3 breaths. And I had to read a couple of those things twice.
And pharmacists. We're still trying to figure out the pharmacist.
Well, which was something I didn't actually know until I read all the way through the bio intro there and went, oh, pharmacist. Knowing you, Jude, that doesn't actually... It doesn't surprise me,
right?
Because of all the things that you're so proficient at anyway, and to know that you do something heady along with all the other stuff, it probably provides some balance, I would think.
Well, actually, yes. And so I've been spiritual and psychic since I was a kid. And I used to know when people were going to die, and I didn't know what to do with it as a kid, right? So I did everything possible to shut this off. So because the work that we do in psychic and mediumship work is usually on the right side of the brain, and I'm very creative as well on the right side of my brain, I had to choose something that was on the left side of my brain to really push away all this energy because, you know, I was afraid of it as a kid. I didn't know what else it was. I didn't know what to do with it. So, you know, nothing better than choosing something medical, professional, you know, heady, lots of stuff with that to get away from that energy. And I'm actually a natural healer, so I would chose a healing professional from that standpoint. And in all honesty, it's been fabulous because I've been able to work in the whole medical side of the community and help people heal from that side. But then now doing all this energy work in the last sort of half of my life with that, it really is a nice blend because sometimes what happens is, you know, I become kind of like a medical intuitive sometimes. And so I feel things happening and I actually can describe them and give them names as opposed to just say, well, I just feel something in my chest. From that standpoint. So it's been kind of interesting. And then the other thing that also comes up in that, so the pharmacy side of what I do, because I've been a pharmacist for 42 years. And so from that standpoint, there's also things that kind of come up in readings with like people ask medical advice. I mean, it's an interesting thing with all that. So I think it's been fun. But I retired from pharmacy in 2010 because I kept moving more towards holistic. So Western medicine's very defined, very specific. You know, the drug companies run most of the medical schools in terms of the information and stuff that they teach people. So it's very drug-oriented from that, and obviously pharmacy is as well. But the other interesting piece of that is I worked with a holistic physician. She was a pediatrician from Brazil. And so she brought in all this holistic medicine and all this homeopathy. Well, she brought it into the pharmacy, and I had to learn what it was because people would come and ask me, what is this stuff from that? And so from that side, I learned that there's, you know, so much more that we can do with homeopathy and natural medicine that I really had a hard time going back to the other side of pharmacy to say, let me give you these drugs, and then next week we're going to have to give you another drug for the side effect of the drug, and then the following week we're going to have to give you another drug for the other side effect of the drug. And so pretty soon we have 50 drugs on board, when in fact you could have taken 2 homeopathy things and a little bit of vitamins. So it was like my brain was sort of fighting with itself because I have a sense of wanting to help people. All my life I've been wanting to help people and wanting to heal people from that standpoint. So it made no sense. Because it was just like, you know, I'd go home at night and I just hated I hated some of the stuff that was going on in the world of medicine. I hated a number of drugs. It's like, no, don't take that drug. No, don't take that drug. So I had to move away from that. But I took some of that knowledge, the positive side of that knowledge, and brought it into the healing side of the other things that I do from that standpoint. So, but I'm going to tell you from an energy standpoint, when you're doing psychic or mediumship work or you're doing healing work, I just feel like that it is one of those things that just will not go away. If you're really meant to do this, I mean, it's like everything else just gets shut down and you just move towards that goal, and then everything else just opens up when you finally decide, okay, I'm going to stay on the holistic side of this world to be able to do that. So then that's kind of what has happened for me in terms of being able to do that. So a few years ago, I'm doing pharmacy stuff, and it became a little bit weird because we were in this old building, so in this pharmacy, and it was an old school, and I felt the spirits around us, right? And we would come in after being gone for the night, and there'd be things moved around, you know, because you close at night and things move around, and you know there'd be things spilled on the floor, and you know, and it's all locked, so it's a pharmacy, so it's completely locked, so nobody can get in there. So you'd come and you'd find all this energy from that. And it was interesting because I found myself wanting to tune into the spirits, and then people would come up to me and it'd be like, you know, is your grandmother on the other side? And you have to be a little bit careful, right? Because you're giving pharmacy advice, you're doing that sort of thing. So I really couldn't connect to them from that standpoint to be able to do that. But it was sort of enticing to try to do something like that. So I really had to just kind of shut that down, because that really, you know, that's that whole side of the business that you really, because, you know, you're going to scare somebody, right? Because your grandmother's standing right behind you, and well, she died 10 years ago, and then now the person's freaking out, and now you have to get some other medicine for them.
I have this vision of the pharmacy counter, right, where you stand at the queue, and there's the, you know, please keep your space for the privacy of the one in front of you. And here stands Jude, but next to it is a line not available at any other pharmacy for psychic intuitive readings. And that line goes down and like around aisle 1. Excuse me just a second. I got to grab a prescription. I'll be right back with you and your grandmother. That's
yes, it's kind of a weird world, right, with that, from that standpoint. But that's actually what it began to felt like. So it's like, okay, I'm just done with this. I had to work with the company long enough I could actually retire. So it was like, okay, I'm done. And then I could expand and do more things. And I think the interesting thing was I had tried very hard to shut this off. And there was a point in time where I just said, because I knew when someone was going to die, and I felt it for like 6 weeks, because I'm an empath naturally, right? And so I could feel everything that they were going through, and I really didn't like that. And so I had really said to the universe, you know, please take this gift away. I don't want to do this. Well, they did for a little bit. From that standpoint, but then they started giving me information about people who were murdered, and I thought, okay, now what am I going to do with this, right? From bits and pieces of that. So I said, I've got to go get some training, because I don't know what to do with this. You know, am I supposed to call somebody? You know, what am I supposed to do? So that's the whole journey of training, because I have a sense of wanting to be proficient at everything I do. So I have a real need to you know, try and understand everything from that standpoint. And so I did a lot of training with a lot of people who were from Arthur Findlay College, which is outside of London. So that's the premier institute that trains mediums in Europe and partly in the United States. But we have no standards for mediumship in the U.S. And there's really strong standards and a very strong curriculum in Arthur Findlay College outside of London. So most of my mentors and teachers are all from there, so which gives me a completely different perspective about how to do things, because they do things, they're very precise in Europe, and they're very precise with information coming through from that standpoint. So I teach what I learn, so that's how I teach too. So, and I work with people individually, and we work in groups individually from that standpoint, and people learn how to pick up information with a lot of clarity and a lot of accuracy. So that's kind of where I've taken that, right? You have to be precise as a pharmacist. You got to be precise as a medium.
I love that. You know, I've wanted to go to Arthur Findlay, and I've talked about at some point taking a group over from our community, because I think there's several of us that would love to go.
Yep.
And I think, from what I understand, they set it up like a week at a time.
Mm-hmm.
And you go and stay for a week, and you take classes, and you come back. And that's definitely on my bucket list, because I really want to do that. Because like you, I've always connected since I was a child. I've never had training, though.
Right.
They just come and speak to me.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And so I get information all the time.
Yeah.
But I'm one of the lucky ones. I can turn it off. You know, there's lots of people that I've become friends with that it's open all the time. They don't have a shut-off valve. They can't shut it off. It's continuous all the time. And I'm very lucky that I don't have that much going on. Mm-hmm. But you talked about doors opening. I think everybody, when they step on their spiritual path, Spirit lets you shut it down for a little bit.
Yeah, that's right.
They take it away. They honor your request for a little bit. But they always tend to kind of sneak it back in a little later at a different point. They kind of guide us. And I feel like your pharmacy stuff was intentional.
Oh, it was, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah,
because when you go back and look at everything that you've done along your journey, there's reasons why you were there. There were skill sets that you gained. There was knowledge that you gained that helps you down the way to do something even bigger, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And when they're done, like teasing you and pushing you, that's when the 2x4 comes in and stuff starts shutting down, and you can't find a job in your area anymore, or your expertise, and nobody wants to hire you. And so all this stuff happens, and it's literally like it's the tower card. They're shutting it all down because you're supposed to go this direction, and they're going to keep pushing you that way. Yep. And it's kind of natural. I think everybody we've talked to has similar stories. And so for our listeners out there listening, if you feel like doors are shutting, be open to what they're trying to tell you, because they're nicely nudging you for a little while, and then they slam the door and it's shut. It's like, oh no, you can't return here. You need to go down this way.
But don't you find in that is that when we accept that that's kind of what's happening, and that Spirit's wanting us to work in a particular direction, that then once we get going in that direction, that there's so many opportunities and so much stuff.
And so much you can't see at that point, that you have no idea how much better your life's going to be. And they know that. Like, you have no idea how big this is until you start going in your direction. Right. When we're in our flow and our divine purpose, what we're meant to do, things come to us super easy. It's when it's difficult that we have to ask ourselves, what am I trying to do here that I'm not supposed to do? Am I in the wrong direction, the wrong path, the wrong flow? What's happening here? That it's difficult, because I believe when you're on path, it's easy. Does that mean we don't have challenges? No, we do. They help us grow. They help us learn through those challenges, and we're always going to have that. Spiritual people don't get rid of all the challenges in their life. We still have a few of those. That's part of this experience that we're in, but it doesn't seem as difficult as it could be if we weren't connected to our gifts.
Well, and I think the other thing that happens in all of that is, even if there are like rocks in the road and there are things happening with that, there's a sense of no fear the more that you do, the more spiritual work that you do from that standpoint, because you know there's a purpose. You know that there's a lesson in that. You know that there's something that you're supposed to get out of that. So I think even if there are difficult things that are happening, the perspective is completely different. And, you know, we don't have that sense of freaking out like before. We would have been just frightened of things from that standpoint.
And that's so true. You know, even here at our center, which just flooded a few days before Christmas, people have been asking Tom, has she had a meltdown? Has she had a meltdown? Because my center is sad. The energy's gone. It's been really, it's been affected very deeply. And most people, I would say 20 years ago, this would have been a rock that would have been very difficult to overcome. Yep. And with my spiritual place in my life and where I stand, I know this isn't punishment, even though we all question that for a little while because that's our human nature. Did I do something wrong? Is there a reason? But I believe there's a golden star in this somewhere, and we just haven't found it yet, and it will come through, and we just have to trust that we're supposed to be in this, and maybe this time is meant to be used for something else or other things, or to create a tighter community, to build a stronger bond, to get the right people on the stage. There's lots of stuff happening that we have to trust, that there's reasoning behind this that you may not see for months, years, decades, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, that's why that turned for me, so that I could go down this road, or I could choose that. And we just have to trust. We have to be in that space. Does that mean I haven't cried? No, I've cried. I've cried for the loss. I'm in grief as well as my team. But I'm in such a better place than I would have been 20, 30 years ago, because I know this is just a little bump in the road that's going to lead to something much bigger. And I just have to be patient and be open to my guidance and keep listening to what I'm being told and follow that path.
Yeah, and I think that's always the case with that. But the other thing I think that's interesting, as you were saying that just kind of popped into my mind about that, was maybe it's not about the center, maybe instead it should be about the people. Because all the people that you work with, all the people in your center, all your people in your team, all have amazing gifts from that standpoint. So maybe it's an opportunity for them to showcase all of their gifts in an environment that maybe isn't as beautiful and nice as it was, but look at how well they're growing and how many things they're doing and how many people they're helping, regardless of the circumstances, which means that you could do any of this like on a street corner. Right, with that? And so I think sometimes we have to be very, very thankful about just the whole people that we're connected with and that we're working with from that standpoint. And and show just a ton of gratitude on a daily basis for the people, because the center will repair itself in a way, and it will metamorphosize, or I'm not sure I'm saying that word right, but it will change into being something very beautiful from that standpoint, where in fact then the people will all come together with even more zeal and joy to create something new from that standpoint. And I think that you have almost magical energy in here with the people and the team of people that you have from that standpoint.
It is magical. I mean, I'm grateful for so many things. Like we packed that center in 6 hours, and I still today don't know how we did that. We packed and moved everything out in 6 hours. That's 9 rooms, retail, everything got packed and moved in 6 hours. I don't know how we did it. It's kind of one of those things that you're like, how in the world did we accomplish that? And
I think that is a testament to what Jude just shared. It was the community that showed up. We put the call out, and the door was open, and dozens of people walked through it.
Well, and I think we always underestimate the benefit that clients and other providers have in that camaraderie together, and how very grateful people are for all the services that you offer and that I offer in my business as well. And I think with that, there's such an energy, when somebody has a call like that, to just show right up and, let's just take care of it. From that standpoint.
But it's a great example that just because you're spiritual doesn't mean your life is beautiful, perfect. It doesn't work that way. Not for any of us.
No.
Right?
Well, it's called human. Yeah, I spend a lot of time reminding people of that. Yeah, you're working on these things and you've done all this stuff, but you're still a human.
Right.
You're by design not supposed to be perfect. It's okay. You have this perfect body and a brain, but we do all this stuff to mess it up, and that's part of the journey.
It is. It is.
Yeah. The only benefit is really coming in with a clean slate, which when you start to study the spiritual stuff, you realize, man, there's a lot of stuff that I could have had that could have helped me. And I came in with this blank slate. And all this other stuff has changed me and switched me around. And then there's people like the two of you, and I wasn't blessed that way, which I probably would have ended up in a straitjacket, but it had that had some of those spiritual aspects actually active, right, when you were young, and found a way to deal with that, and now have figured out that that's what I'm supposed to be doing.
Right.
And I talk with a lot of people. I work with a lot of different clients that have had things when they were younger, and then there's that block in the middle where it's almost non-existent for a period, whether that's just for a few years or even decades, and then it comes back, right? Like you said, Violet, it sort of creeps back in and comes back in, right? But it seems to me, and tell me, ladies, if I'm off here, but it seems when you're young, a lot of what you're getting is communication from what we would refer to as the other side.
Yes.
Seeing spirits, getting communication from spirits.
Yeah.
I don't hear a lot of people talk about I could move things with my mind, or I could read people's minds. Like, those aren't the kind of things. It's the connection with what's on the other side of the veil that is really active, and that usually brings people back to that kind of study.
Right. Well, and it's the always active. In terms of if you have a sense of being prompted to do something, you learn when you're little to follow your intuition from that standpoint. So you live your whole life through intuition. And some people don't even understand how to use their intuitive sense from that. And so they're constantly sort of running into walls and making decisions based on ego or, emotions or something associated with that. But I think when you're little, you just think everybody knows that you should really go down that road. It's that sort of thing, right? With that, didn't you experience that when you were little? You had that sense of knowing, like, always in the right place. Okay, there's a car coming, let me stop. Before it ever happens.
Yeah, knowing what was going to happen. And you learn really quickly as a child when you share that with people that their reaction to it is like, ooh, I shouldn't say those things.
Right.
Because they don't believe me.
Right.
And then it happens, and then they don't want to address that either because they're going to ignore that you said that, and that's exactly what happened. Yep. Because if they pretend like they never heard it, it didn't exist.
Well, suppression is the enemy of expression.
Oh, it is, absolutely.
And that's what we're trained in, is exactly the example you're giving, or of any kind. Like, the guy's got a big nose. Oh, we don't say that.
Right.
Well, the guy's aware. It's in the middle of his face. He's seen it.
Right.
And a kid recognizes the truth of that, and their experience, regardless of what it is for them, is so clean and pure and clear, and when they share it and it gets shut down, it only takes one of those to really hinder your ability to continue to develop. And even just the one area, but when you have it repeatedly, man, what an obstacle. So to be in an environment where you can flourish with that, where people actually communicate with you, right? A lot of times someone will be lucky to have someone in their world or in their life. Oh, my grandmother understood, but she was the only one. Right. And that exactly. Thankfully, there's more and more of that happening now.
Yes.
There's a lot of parents that are open to the spiritual side and are very open to allowing their children to express and share that, which I think has a lot to do with the overall shifting of of consciousness. And not to get too esoteric or anything, but that helps the numbers.
It does.
Along the way, right? Every time we're helping the numbers, so that all of you that were blessed early and have come back to it are kicking the doors open for those that can accept it earlier and maintain it, instead of having that period of years or decades where it's shut down.
Yeah.
So you guys are like pioneers. You're willing to come back to that. Right? From this seat, that's what that looks like.
Yeah. No, I can see where that perspective would come across that way. I just think that it becomes so ingrained in what you're doing that you don't even think about that you're doing it, right? From that standpoint. I'm just very, very thankful, though, that more parents are more open to not shut their kids down, though. Because I think there's an incredible generation of younger people coming through now that have such an insight. And a lot of sort of old souls coming back, to try to help a lot of things. And it's just so exciting to see these younger people just do some of this stuff. It's amazing, I think, to see that. It's amazing to work with some of them to be able to do that. So.
And that's the giving back, right? For all what we've all been allowed to do and have a lifestyle and have a store or a business or our practice or whatever that is. That opportunity to give back to a younger generation in whatever form that is, whether it's helping their parents or connecting with them, that's our opportunity to, here's our chance, right? I didn't blow it. I have an opportunity to make a difference, to make an impact. It gives you another realm to do that in. And we all find out along the way that all the stuff we did, all of our experience has prepared us to be in that kind of position. Right? And we accept that role as a teacher or a leader or whatever that piece is to be able to participate. There's a lot of power and continuity in that. And the more we do it, the more good stuff happens.
Well, and doesn't that feel great in terms of just not only are you helping people, helping yourself, but then it just mushrooms and just spreads around, and it's like a positive wave of energy against the balance of some of the negativity that's in the world. So I think it's making a huge difference for a lot of people with that. So
well, there's that light and dark constant sort of pendulum swing that we have, right? But the possibility of swinging the pendulum and holding it in one place as a collective does exist. And the more light we push that direction, we really can get to a place where that's more of what happens.
Yes.
Right? Because we're living in that duality. There's so much of this as there is of that. But it is possible as a race, as a world, and the earth in general, to move to a place where that's not the case anymore. It's it's a process.
Well, and I think in successive generations we're going to see that. We're going to see a more cohesive world. We're going to see less judgment. We're going to see a lot of people with a lot of the same kinds of mindset to be able to be productive and helpful without having to sort of judge how people are doing that. And I would really welcome that, in terms of...
Part of the state of our world in so many different categories right now is showing us what that percentage looks like.
Yep.
And we're starting to get static numbers and see, especially in our country, what that swing is right now.
Right.
And how the middle part of it is starting to move.
Yep.
And if that middle part can move, then the other parts eventually can move.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's not about changing people or repatterning all their beliefs, but there's a beauty to there being a fresh perspective and a new way of looking and doing things.
Yeah, and I do think the
up.
newer generations are going to come in with none of the concepts of things that are, that the older generations that are holding on so tightly to, that it will be very refreshing just to see the change from that perspective. So I'm excited to see
as
the next
different
20,
as
30
it,
years.
As different as it is, they have less limitation, or what we perceive as limitations in our generations.
Right. Yeah, because they don't have the same filters. They don't have the same anything. Paradigms essentially. So
well, it'll be
interesting to
the
see.
social media consciousness is creating,
isn't it though?
some good things. It's and it's like anything else. There's it's this extreme and that extreme, but there's a lot of what's happening there that represents how other societies have been successful with open communication and understanding and conversation, and all of those things are starting to happen at a very high level. And that can't do anything but get everybody on the same page eventually.
Right, yeah, because communication is always going to make it easier to get on the same page, right?
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah, it is, isn't it, with things going on with that.
So we're at a point where we should probably take a quick break, and we'll learn a little bit about the center. And please join us. Jason and Vialet and Jude Starks will be right back with you.
Hi, I'm Violet Rain, Master and Teacher of Angelic Reiki at Discover Your Spiritual Gifts. If you love angels, if you resonate with angels, or you're just interested in learning more about angels, most people really want to consider Angelic Reiki. But Angelic Reiki is more than just working with the angels and learning a new healing modality. It's about ascension. And when you step into Angelic Reiki, you're not only working with angels, but you're working with ascended masters and galactic healers. The angelic kingdom of light, which includes all of those, steps in and helps you be able to hold more light. And what I have found along this journey is it expands your ability to be able to hold light, which raises your frequency, which accelerates your ascension process. So the individuals that step onto Angelic Reiki are really ready to step onto their spiritual path. learn more about angels, ascended masters, galactic healers, learn possibly a new healing modality that they'll use in their life, but also they're ready for those major shifts in their lives to really be on their spiritual path and take their journey to the next level. If you've been thinking about angelic Reiki, or you'd like to find out more about this beautiful modality, please don't hesitate to contact me, Vialet, at discoveryourspiritualgifts.com, or check out our website under classes. You will find angelic Reiki there with lots of information about this program and the benefits of taking this course. We hope to see you in class really soon, and I hope to see you at Discover Your Spiritual Gifts.
And hello, thanks you for returning with us. This is Jason and Vialet, and we have Jude Starks, medium and teacher, with us today. So Jude, we've touched a little bit on about your teachings and what your background is. Share with us a little bit about what you do. What are your readings? What do you do for clients, and what do you do for your students?
Well, I do a lot of things, obviously, from the bio. I would tell you that I spend about probably 70% of my time doing spiritual work and about 30% of the time doing mind work. So because I'm a neurolinguistic master practitioner and trainer, I work with a lot of people to get rid of a lot of blocks, a lot of mindset issues, a lot of limiting beliefs, a lot of trauma in some cases. The interesting thing about that kind of work is I end up working with a lot of women who've had different kinds of trauma, which you've read about in the news and that sort of kind of thing. And it's been interesting because it's so effective at releasing a number of different kinds of trauma in the body and in the emotional mindset. So I do that probably about 30% of the time is I spend on doing that sort of thing. And I love that work because it's very transformational for the client themselves. But the other piece of that I do with that is I also bring into, when I teach psychic development and mediumship, the biggest issue that I find with new students coming in there a lot of times is their limiting beliefs. They have a fear of doing this. They have a number of limiting beliefs about being able to connect psychically or mediumistically to be able to bring information through from that standpoint. So there's even a little bit of neurolinguistic programming in my training to get people to release a lot of the problems and things associated with that so that they're more effective to do that. Because when our mindset is so tight and we have such fears, we'll push away any spiritual energy coming towards us, particularly with mediumship, because people have a real fear that they might be inviting something negative in or something associated with that, or maybe they grew up in a religious environment where they had very strict sort of dogmatic rules about doing this sort of work, and so from that standpoint they have a lot of fears associated with that. So a lot of times there's a little bit of NLP built into my training as well to help people from that standpoint. So in the other 70% of the work that I do mediumship readings, psychic readings, I do gallery readings, I do small group sort of like psychic parties from that standpoint to be able to do that. And then I do the NLP and hypnosis. I'm trained as a past life regression hypnotherapist, so I do past life regressions for people. But it's almost everything that I do is around the mental and emotional body to move it away so that spiritual energy can come in for people. And then in terms of mediumship, regular appointments. I have an office in Denver. I have an office in Loveland. I teach groups in Loveland and I teach groups in Denver with that, and I have a whole certification series for psychic development and evidential psychic mediumship certification, which is a year-long program. So I do a lot of work with students in groups and sometimes individually with that. But even when you're in a group, it's not like, I don't know if you've ever been to some of these trainings where you've probably been to some of these, right? Where you'll be in a big group and you'll have like a medium up there and they're giving a little lecture, and pretty soon you're in a group of like 40 or 50 people, right? And then they say, here, do this exercise. Well, you don't have really enough information to do the exercise, but here you are working with somebody who's equally at the same level you are, not really knowing what to do with it, right? So you're doing a little reading with them and your little practice back and forth. And so here you are thinking, well, I'm not sure that I'm doing it right, so I'm going to do it like she does it, right? So pretty soon we're learning bad habits from the person. So there's never any sort of intervention to say, wait a minute, no, let's do that a little bit differently. This is not quite right here. So you end up in these big group trainings, and people think that they're doing all this amazing work from that standpoint, but when they get out and then they're in the real world of trying to do this sort of thing, they find themselves stuck, because now they've either developed bad habits, or now they're not picking up the information, or they're not being as clear, not picking up a lot of evidence as they're going through with this. So my trainings are small. I never train more than 18 people at a time. And I do that on purpose, because when I have a group with that, we'll have them in a circle and everybody's reading, and then I'm actually listening to how they're reading, and I'm actually listening to what they're doing, and I can tell from what they're reading and the information that they're giving how they're doing that. So then I can correct some of the things as we're going around the circle in the process of being able to do that. So people are all getting little individual sort of tweaking as we go around the circle, and then we go another exercise and we do the same thing. So I'm always like really hands-on with students, because I want them to get the basics of being able to understand how to do psychic work and how to do mediumship work. And there's, different ways to do this, but there's kind of a really very specific ways when you're doing evidential work from that standpoint. And so I think I get a lot of feedback from students that they really like that, because they get kind of lost in what they're doing from that standpoint. So I think my training with the students is all that way. And rarely are they just kind of on their own, doing their own thing, and, the teacher's out of the room, and, they're trying to learn something from that standpoint. Because I don't feel like that actually works, if that makes sense, in terms of being able to do that. So I do that. That's the kind of stuff that I do. So I would say that's probably 70% of stuff that I do, and then the other 30 is neurolinguistic related things or hypnosis related things from that standpoint. And fortunately, I don't have to deal with any pharmacy stuff anymore, thankfully. And so then I can just work on healing. And then sometimes I also do some trance work. I do some trance work for myself, just to be able to connect and sort of stay in a really connected to the spiritual world. Because the more that you can sort of sit in trance, the more that you're connected spiritually from that standpoint. So sometimes I'll just do some trance work for myself to be able to do that. I tend to read a little bit in a kind of a slight trance anyway from that standpoint. But anyway, so that's kind of my stick to be able to do that. So and those are the things that I do from that standpoint.
So people out there that are interested in learning more about mediumship, what would be I'm trying to think how to word that. Because there's lots of people that are interested in mediumship, but they may not have gotten their gifts opened immediately. Like they're not intuitively connected yet. So you do the psychic development first to help get them connected to whatever gifts they have, so they're getting information.
Yeah. So the year-long program is really, like the first 6 months are the psychic side of that. And the reason that we do that way from that standpoint is because you're right, people don't know how to use their senses. Mm-hmm. And so what they do with that is, so we'll have brand new students that have never done anything. And they'll come in, and there's a kind of a specific way that we help them open up those things, help them connect and use their senses to pick up information. And then they find themselves, as they're going along, because there's 24 classes in this series, they find themselves, as they're going along, getting better and better, and they're feeling more confident because they're picking up things psychically. And they're learning how to use their senses as they're picking up things psychically. And then we introduce, in the last half of the year, is all mediumship. So now they've learned how to use their senses, and now they're now learning how then to pick up spiritual energy, to link to spiritual energy, which we all do anyway to some degree. But the key to mediumship is understanding that you're linking to the spirit from the other side, but you have to hold that link long enough to pick up the information. Mm-hmm. And then you have to translate the information that they're giving you, so that when, if I'm sitting with Jason and you're my sitter, so to speak, and I'm reading, one of your people from the other side.
Oh, my turn. Go ahead.
That I can give you information that you understand from that perspective, to be able to do that. So we have to be able to hold that spirit link long enough. We have to be able to translate that information that the Spirit's giving us, because sometimes that information isn't literal. I prefer reading literally, but some of my students actually end up more symbolically, which then we sort of have to straighten them out and try to get away from the symbolism and try to just do literal. because they're going to be more effective and it's going to be easier for them to read from that standpoint. But if I'm sitting with Jason, then I have to hold that long enough to bring information through and give it to Jason, and then I would ask Jason, which a lot of mediums don't do. I'm just going to tell you from a standpoint of understanding this. They'll just give you this whole spiel about here's all this stuff about your grandfather and spirit from that, and they never give you a chance to say yes or no to that. Well, evidential mediumship is, I'll give you a piece of information and you'll say yes, so that we're verifying that we're bringing through that information from the spirit world. Because the biggest killer for mediumship is if we get into imagination, because our imaginations are hugely powerful from that standpoint. So we want to stay away from imagination, because we want to just do a direct connection to the spirit world through our senses. And once we hold that information and bring it through, and Jason's saying yes, 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 yes to all the information that we're going through, then all of us, Jason, myself, and the spirit world, all know that it's accurate and we're connected. And then more information can come through and more information can come through. And now we have a solid, real connection with that. So everybody knows that the information is accurate. And I just feel like when we do that sort of mediumship, and so when we do that in our course, and we do time after time, and people are getting confidence because the information they're receiving is accurate, then they know they're doing this. Now, the interesting thing about that is we're all spirits first, and then we're humans second. So we can all do this. There's no reason that any of us can't do any of this work from that standpoint. But so many of us, when we came down here with the idea in mind to shut off all these these gifts and things, that we haven't really explored any of that, and we haven't really done anything with that. So now we're saying in our courses, of course you can do this, so just, practice and you can do it from that standpoint. So I think over a period of time, people, I have not had a student who've taken my course, and this is my 8th year of teaching this series, who has not been able to do a psychic reading or who has not been able to do a mediumship reading. I've not had any, none. They've all been able to do that from that standpoint, because they can do it anyway. All we're doing is just reorienting them to the ways to be able to do that. So that's what we do with that. So, and in this course series, we do about half the courses online and half the courses live. And the reason that we do that is because, number one, I have people in Loveland and Denver and every place that all kind of want to come and do this. And because I take such a limited number of students at a time in a course with this, it makes it easier for everybody to get the portion where we learn about the concepts from that standpoint. Let's learn about what we're doing psychically and understand what we're doing and why we're doing that and understand the mechanism of it. And then what we do is then we bring them to a practicum, and now we're practicing what we said we were doing in this class, and now they're learning that piece of what we're doing. And so the whole course is set up that way from that standpoint. So that's and it just seems to be so effective for some of the students. Now what I did, because I personally love to go do different trainings myself, just to kind of keep myself sharp from that. And a couple years ago, I ran into the top mediumship trainer in the world, and his name is Paul Jacobs. And he has taught at Arthur Findlay College for 30 plus years. And this is the first year he's going to actually retire. He's not going to be the primary teacher. He's going to work with another one of the teachers from that standpoint, because he's in his 60s and he's trying to, slow down here. But I asked him a couple years ago, could you come to Colorado and work with my group? So last year, he came to Colorado and worked, so he had what he calls a progressive. So that was a series of 3 events, and so, you can't just do one event, you have to do all 3 in that particular series. And he only works with 16 students when he works with that. And it was just amazing to see the students really learn from him, too, because he's an extraordinary teacher. I don't know if you know a lot of things about European or a British mediumship, but the very best medium in the 20th century was Gordon Higginson, and he was from England. And he could do physical mediumship, he could do mental mediumship, he could do spiritual mediumship, he could do trance, he could move objects, he could levitate things, he could do a variety of different things from that standpoint. But he was so deadly accurate. When you had a reading with him, I mean, he down to the nth degree. Okay, well, I can understand that you had tea today, and it went to this. And I mean, he just so, and you can find a few of his things on YouTube. but he passed away in the 70s, and so he was the best mediumship teacher. And there's only 3 teachers that are alive now that he taught to teach, and Paul is one of those, and Mavis Spatilla is another one, and then Brian, I think it's James, is the third one. And Mavis is quite ill, and she teaches a lot of courses when she can, but Paul is his primary student teacher, and so he's carried on a lot of Gordon's teaching, and then Paul's added his own teaching to that, but he is very no-nonsense. You have to have a strong ability to have somebody say, okay, no, fix that, no, that's rubbish, fix that with that, because he's very specific. When you're doing mediumship, he's very specific, and, do this, do this, do this, from that standpoint. So, and he's going to be back then this year again, so he's going to continue to do his progressives with my group, which is nice. So he'll be back only twice this year, which is nice to do that. He'll be back in June, and he'll be back in October. And then when he comes, and I really would encourage you guys and your listeners to come and watch him demonstrate, because he'll demonstrate, and you won't have ever seen somebody demonstrate like him, the accuracy of what he's doing with that. And then I usually demonstrate a couple of links with him too, which is completely different than what his is, but still it's okay. But it's hard to stand up on stage and do a gallery reading like with the best medium in the world, and you're just going, okay,
right?
From that standpoint. But it's okay, from that. But I would really encourage you when he comes. He'll be back in June, and he'll be back in October, to come and watch him demonstrate.
I would love to do that. I've been trying to take your class. You and I have talked back and forth for a couple years now. And it's like, I need to come and take your class. I've been trying to also at some point get you here to do a class so I could really take it. But yeah, I'm very curious. I'd love to take your classes.
Well, you're welcome to.
How do people find you, Jude? How do they get in touch with you? How do they learn about your classes and sign up and all that good stuff?
So the easiest way is you can just, so my website is Jude, Jude, Starks, STARKS.com. So you can go to JudeStarks.com. All my classes are there. Everything's there. If you want to email me, you can just email me at JudeStarks.com. And send me information, about, or, questions or things that you have associated with that from that standpoint. That's probably the easiest way to get a hold of me, is just shoot me an email or go to my website from that, and you'll see all the other classes and things associated with that on there. And it's good. I'd like to tell you I write a lot, and I put a lot of interesting information on my website, but I'm not much of a writer, so I tend to teach a lot. So you got to catch me and listen to me as opposed to read me.
That's okay. That's the role that works for you. That's how
exactly.
You transfer the information.
Absolutely.
It's great.
Yeah.
Well, Jude, thank you so much for taking the time to make your way down here and share with us not just your experience, but your philosophies today. That was really powerful, and helping us understand some of the training and what really the integrity of mediumship looks like. So many people are winging it, myself included, I just realized. But it's there's a lot to be said for providing accurate and full information. And
right.
I think you really hold that in a high regard, and more people can benefit from that than I think they realize. So thanks for taking the time to share your story and your journey and you with us.
Well, and thank you guys for inviting me. It's fun. It's fun to always come down and see this place and chat with you guys, because I love you both. I think you're just an amazing being. So.
Oh, well, thank you, and we love having you, and we'll definitely do this again in the future, because I'd definitely like to have you back. But we love. Jason and I love seeing you at Body, Mind, and Spirit.
Yes, it's fun, isn't it?
She's my neighbor.
Yeah.
Jason
and I are always neighbors. And then you guys, your booth's always across from us, so we have this triangle of energy going right there.
Right.
People can walk through it and go, oh, it's lovely here.
People just kind of come in and draw to that area in
they
general.
do, don't they?
They really do.
Yeah.
They really do. It's
we're very blessed, Jason, to have that.
It is fantastic. I love it.
Yeah, it's a great little corner, and definitely love seeing you every time. So thank you so much for coming.
You're welcome.
All right, folks, thank you for listening and participating in Discover Your Spiritual Gifts Live. And please stay tuned. We are going to share with you some of our practitioners and what they do here at the center. And we will see you guys in the next episode. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hi, I'm Joyce Gerald. I am a trance channel. I do individual readings, but what I really love to do is teach people how to channel. I've been teaching channeling for about 11 years. I kind of stumbled into the teaching part because I had a client who came to me who wanted to channel, and she said that the only way she could do it is if she was hypnotized because she was terrified. So I was channeling Archangel Metatron for her, and he turned the tables on her and had her start channeling for me. She was absolutely fantastic, one of the best people I've seen. When she was finished with it, she was in tears because it's the first time she'd been able to do it without being hypnotized first. Her guides had asked me if I would start a class to help support her so that she would be comfortable channeling around other people. And so I said, okay, I would teach channeling. So I did a little research and gathered several people to attend the first class. We were all very excited. So I said that she was supposed to bring me to the teaching part of what I do. I enjoy it immensely. Everyone channels in my classes. I have never had anyone who is unable to, but anyone who came in with the intention and the desire always was able to channel. And it's a really fun class. I'll be teaching classes here at Discover Your Spiritual Gifts beginning in March. I have 2 level 1 classes coming up and then a level 2 class. The level 1 class enables you to initially have those words come out of your mouth, but at that point you're not really able to attain that space and just start on your own. And so level 2 is further refining and practicing. They're all really fun classes. You get to listen to everyone else channel. You get to ask questions of the others who are there. So it's a really fun thing to do. You can find the details on the classes at the discoveryourspiritualgifts.com website. They also have a meetup, and I've also put all of my classes on Eventbrite.
Hi, this is Kevin Oakstreet. I am an Oracle and Tarot reader at Discover Your Spiritual Gifts on Tuesdays from 10 to 5. A little background, I've been developing my gifts over a long time, and just recently I felt like a light was switched on, and I got a lot of support and guidance from those close to me. As I've been developing these gifts, I've known that I wanted to become a healer and to help others as well, and I would love to help you unlock your hidden potential.
Hi, I'm Rochelle Kemper. I am a restoration master healer. I work through people's energy grid as I see it. I call it grid working. And I also work with Mother Gaia and the ley lines of the earth, but I also see that and can translate it around somebody's energy body. I got into this through working with another teacher that was showing us to look around a body or an energy body, and I realized that I could see colors. And so when I pinpointed the color, then she made me trace it all the way back. She said, you have to trace it all the way back to the origin. And once I did that, I realized that I could see around people in what looks like an Excel grid sheet. And we get things stuck in that grid sheet, or we get formulas that are blown. And I help people restore those grids through different energies. It could be dragon energy, archangel energy, colors, flowers, all sorts of, everybody works with something different. And I help bring those through to restore your grids. You can find me at Discover Your Spiritual Gifts in historic downtown Littleton. I work at this center on Wednesdays and Thursdays between 10 and 5.
Discover connection, awaken sacredness, become empowered. Join us for our show on Blog Talk Radio.